Sri Lankan society has undergone so much change even after independence. I mean, not to talk about what happened during the colonial times. For instance, after independence, we were basically a divided society already, divided on various lines, in particular in ideological lines. In this case, we were torn between, let's say, a broader nationalist framework as an independent country, basically trying to come together to, figure out, how we want to proceed as a country and so on. That's one line. And the other line, of course, was the long-standing kind of divisions, on ethnic, religious, and other lines, language in particular. So the point is that these various ideological forces started to, influence not only people but also, what happens at a national level by way of, let's say, state interventions. So that's exactly what happened. And I think, when you look at what really has been going on in Sri Lanka over the last 74 years, we have gone through so much change, both positive and negative. I mean, in terms of economic development, after economic liberalization, the point is that we had a huge brain drain happening in Sri Lanka over several decades. Due to various reasons, and as a result, we did not have the human resources necessary for, let's say, the diversification of the economy. For instance, our industries basically collapsed, when we adopted these liberal open economic policies, and we never recovered. In fact, we are 100%, I would say 95% dependent on industrial imports. Like for instance, we don't even produce fertilizer anymore, which we did before. We don't produce tractors, which we did before. We don't produce steel, which we did before. We produce textiles, which we did before, and so on. So the point, we did produce paper, we don't produce anymore, and so on. So the point is that the industrial sector collapsed virtually, and then we could not really, really resuscitate the industrial sector, and that really led to a huge gap between imports and exports, and we had very little to export. And then we did not really identify the productive sectors as areas where we would have invested to bridge the trade gap. Instead, what we did was we exported labor, and we earned money by sending our people abroad to other countries, and that became the main source of foreign exchange for Sri Lanka. $7.5 billion per year, and that has been going on for the last 20 years until it just collapsed. And then tourism. We thought, these are low-hanging fruits, and it's very easy to bring tourists and then feed them and take them around and earn money and so on. Very easy things to do, but you could now both these things could not really support the country anymore. So that is how the whole economic collapse. You see, there was this massive crisis. We lost all our reserves. Most significant development following this massive economic crisis was to really, push people to the point where they had to really, really reflect on their own situation, because they realized that all these divisions that were created, all these divisions that have influenced their own lives, and also, of course, the politics and various other cultural activities and so on and so forth. People realize that, we are all now in one, boat. We are all really facing a set of problems that, we cannot say that it's confined to one particular group or one particular segment of society. The main center of political activity today. I mean, it really brought the whole country together virtually. I mean, people came from all parts of the country, and all the divisions became, rather kind of irrelevant. And that continues to be the case. And also, I think the kind of patron-client system that took care of certain segments of the population on let's say sectarian and party lines. I mean, the government could not really provide any kind of protection to people who were taken care of by their patrons. I mean, for instance, whether it's in Colombo or whether it is in the provinces, the political actors became so irrelevant. They couldn't do anything. You see, so the point is that patron-client system collapsed, and that was what sustained the regimes in Sri Lanka for decades. I mean, like everybody, joined these political camps, depending on who is in power, and then basically they got what they wanted through these political networks. Now those political networks have become less and less relevant today. So you can see the change. I mean, on the ground is quite stark. The young people, are the most adversely affected by this crisis. And when they are really pushed to a corner by a crisis like this, naturally they feel the need to somehow get activated and somehow send a message to the powers that be that we are thinking now in a new way, and we do not want to go with conventional politics. We do not really respect these political boundaries that you have drawn up for your own purposes. And I think that I think it's a major change, and I would say that that we have now a situation where you can bring about change, and those changes won't happen automatically, but the resistance for change would be much less now. For instance, the language issue. I mean, and people would realize the need for bilingualism, multilingualism much more now, because they probably encountered the problem themselves, during this short period, because communication is key. So I guess we will have to really bring about a lot of change in the long run, but it would have been more difficult in the past to do that because there was resistance. Say, for instance, the impact of religion on I mean, that was obvious, but then it was not easy to really change that. We can actually, think about future in a new light. In other words, a lot of the political slogans have become rather irrelevant now. You see, you cannot really do conventional politics anymore here. You have to really figure out, how you could do a new kind of politics. And also, I think the institutions have to be reinvented now, because all the politicized institutions will have to be revamped to fit into the new environment, and where political patronage is not going to be accepted, and equity and all these issues can be really taken up more effectively now, I think, in this new environment. Yeah.